How's it going? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical today. We have a lot to talk about. Several super majors obviously went down this weekend. Decided to change the settings for me. Yes. Well, thank you, Microsoft Windows. You're the best. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it, chat. Audio is an arcane science. I do not and will never understand. So I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand it. So we had several super measures go on over the weekend, including not only the first GW Open of 11th edition, in addition to some of the Edinburgh Super Major, which is very exciting. We also just got a new data sheet for orcs, which we could talk about, which is sweet. And I think we'll start with that, because that's pretty cool. Warhammer Community just dropped us this gorgeous little preview article about Nazdrag, who I guess is a dude, which is cool. So yeah. I guess this is a guy from Warhammer 40,000? The totalist of the Warhammers. And we can talk about his data sheet real quick here because we get the whole thing. What's funny about this is this is definitely this data sheet is definitely like a screenshot of a different picture, and I don't know why that's like very funny to me, but it's like all grainy, and for whatever reason it has like artifacting around the edges. So it's definitely like something just like screen grabbed and then posted in the article. I don't know. It's just very funny. Anyway, I'm interested so he is a leader, I guess. He's like an extremely beefy leader, so he's sort of a Gazgul like T7 8 wounds. Okay, fair enough. I don't know what he leads, but that I guess will be included in the Munitorum field manual. I don't know if it tells us in his article if he leads anything in particular, and I think the answer is that it doesn't. So thanks, G-Dub. I imagine it's like boys and, I don't know, he's a bad moods guy, so maybe like Ludas and or Flash Gets or something. Yeah, he is mega armored, but so is Gaz. So I think like the mega armor keyword, especially in Epic Heroes, isn't necessarily representative of the fact that he'll jump into anything in particular. He gives his unit deep strike and ignore cover. Once per round per army, you can choose a friendly organ within 6 inches. It loses battle shock and gains riled up. So riled up is the new WOG mechanic. So it gives them all the benefits of WOG. Outside of actually declaring the WOG turn, which is cool. Obviously, WOG has a couple of different effects. I think it generally doesn't really buff your damage output quite as much, but it still retains a lot of the other effects. Thank you for the membership, Muzzbuzz. 2 models upstaging coming out. Yeah, Wazdaka and Nazdrag. I don't know if Nazdrag necessarily upstages him, but it's definitely different, right? Because he's like more shooting oriented. Gaz hits dramatically harder and is a bit more of a force multiplier. In addition to that, in your opponent's movement phase, an enemy unit ends move within 8 inches of his unit. If your unit is engaged, you can reactive move up to D6, or if you're riled up, you get a 5-inch reactive move, which is that's interesting. The D6 reactive move, the D6 normal move, can potentially take you longer if you are not riled, which is interesting, because I don't believe, I will fact check myself on this, that there is a requirement to normal moving if the normal move gives you a specific movement distance, or a maximum move. I guess the maximum distance of a normal move is still your movement characteristic, so maybe it's fine. But I guess I am, I don't know. I guess I'm confused. I think that it's weird if a distance up to X is not the maximum distance of the move, but I guess it's probably fine. So I guess it's probably 5 inches either way in most cases. All right. Take a look at his weapon profiles, I guess. He shoots really good. Again, he's going to gain deep strike. Or he just has deep strike and ignore cover all the time. He doesn't need to gain it. So he's locked in at his 4+ ballistic skill. He's also infantry. He's probably very large, but in some cases he might be able to source +1 ballistic skill if he's plunging firing, but I kind of doubt it. He's firing a hazardous custom Blasta X. You think he paints the X on the side and a big red mark? Ballistic skill 4. In most cases, hitting on 4s. So he should be hitting 3 of these, strength 9 AP2 for 3 damage. That's pretty spooky. In addition, he has a non-monster vehicle lethal hit, rapid fire 2, shooter. So he's shooting 6 additional strength 5 AP1s. And then his Scorcha is blast 1 torrent. That's interesting. It's a 3-shot torrent with blast. I don't know if we've seen other updated flamer profiles. I wouldn't be shocked to see if they moved to a more consistent profile with a blast, which is that's fascinating. Because I imagine, this is also from the new codex, so we will see as Space Marines and Orcs come out what the design ethos of these weapons will be in the future. Just torrenting 4 shots and then giving your opponent strength, 4 strength 5s is pretty clean, I guess. And blast 1 also makes it good, like significantly good against infantry, which is pretty cool. The Orc Scorcha was the same. Okay, well, there you go. Easy peasy. I have not seen that, so that's pretty cool. In melee, he has an extra attack weapon, cleave 1, with strength 5 AP1 for 1 damage because he hits you with his gun. He just bonks you on the head. And then Moonchua is his melee weapon, cleave 1, twin linked. Yikes. Strength 12 AP2 for 3 damage. That's a pretty spooky profile. So he's attacking 11 total times. If you can source him sustained hits or expanded criticals or something like that, he's actually pretty spooky in melee. Just because of the attack volume. He's good into basically like especially good against infantry because he has the cleave keyword on both of them, so they can both improve their attack characteristic. He can go up to 13 attacks if he hits a 5-model unit. But in addition to that, he also, he's strength 12 twin linked. Obviously, the AP and damage isn't the craziest thing in the world. He's like most of, but not all of a Hive Tyrant, essentially. But it's still, Hive Tyrants are good in melee, so that's nothing to shake a stick at. So, I don't know. It seems pretty cool. D-Rex Terminator bricks? He could. I think the question mark is whether or not, or what buffs you can source for his ranged weapon. His ranged weapon is spooky, but it doesn't have any keywords on it besides hazardous, which, again, he's like firing his gun indiscriminately. He can just kill guys in his unit when you take hazardous checks, which is very funny. But it doesn't have sustain, right? It doesn't have improved crits. It doesn't have anything like that. So he's just firing 6 shots at 3 damage. He's probably good for 1 dead dude. He's much better in melee. But assuming that this ballistic skill 4 weapon is going to chew up an entire unit is obviously probably unlikely. Unless we see detachments come out, because obviously we don't 100% know what will be following this guy into the new codex. We see detachments come out that can stack a bunch of things like improved criticals and sustain and lethal. And suddenly that weapon profile becomes really, really, really spooky. Spooky dooky. Thoughts on what we see here? He's probably 150. He himself is kind of a tank. He has a pretty practical set of a support suite. And then he hits pretty hard. I'm looking at him sort of like a Kravik-Morn with extra steps, right? Where Kravik-Morn does have this incredibly powerful force multiplier. He himself hits incredibly hard, but obviously his army support is a little bit less. I think Nazdrag's base stat line puts him up a little bit higher. So I'd be in the 150-ish range. It feels like is around where I would see this guy. Maybe 160 because his shooting is so spooky. That's where I would expect to see him, I think. Sub 200 for sure. And over 150 or over, above 140 in that range somewhere, I think. Orcs with Deep Strike is wording. Yeah, the ability to gain Deep Strike to Rapid Ingress is something Orcs really haven't had before in many cases. They can do it with Def Coptas, and there's like a couple situations where you can grant Deep Strike to things, but it's kind of rare for them. Like Storm Boys, I guess. Like, okay. But so being able to take what is probably going to be a relatively punchy unit and then ingress them and get them into an aggressive position, it could be pretty spooky. I having his leader list would be massive, because obviously if he's just like a Mega Nub kind of guy, that's whatever. But being able to ingress onto objectives midboard with boys would be massive, because they obsec, right? So that you can ingress, rile the unit, and then just run at people. You could, if he attaches to ranged platforms, so if he can attach to tank busters, for example, like the Sag Mech can, he gets really scary, because suddenly he gives them ignore cover, which is massive, and then all these profiles get +1 to hit and wound against vehicles. So that unit just deep striking in and deleting a tank is very real. So I'm really curious. I think that's going to be the real kicker, right? At a baseline, he's a good beat stick. But what he attaches to and what he gives deep strike and recover is going to be absolutely massive. He'll be 125. That would be incredibly good. 125, but he can only join like Beast Nagas. The Monkey's Paw Curls. And he joins something that doesn't really shoot very well. Which will be interesting. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about some lists, chat. I think if I was an Orc player, I would be pretty psyched. I think Orcs are getting a slate of very cool character war bosses, which, I don't know, I think I would be super into if I was an Orc player. So we have a couple of super majors to talk about. I will be honest with you. I haven't had an opportunity to look through the final results of them, although we did have some really interesting ones at the GW Open Tacoma, or Warhammer Open Tacoma. Adeptus Custodes, Black Templars, Space Wolves, all putting up, and Eldari, all putting up very strong results. So I think if you are a non-compliant Space Marine chapter aficionado, you might have a really good time over here. Yeah, let's hop in. So I think I want to start by talking about, we'll start slow. We'll basically go down the line for Warhammer Open Tacoma, and we'll talk about some of the top placing stuff. Now, the finals is Orcs versus Orcs. I immediately saw that and I laughed. I was like, oh, poor Orc players. You guys, it's a good thing you guys are getting a new codex, because it is likely that next week, or this week, later this week, most likely, you're going to get fucking annihilated. If they're doing a balance pass and not simply a rules repair pass, Orcs might have a nuclear missile coming for them, because they are extremely high performant. I would not be surprised if they pushed 60, at least with Green Tide, after this weekend. So we may see Green Tide like push to 3 detachment points or something like that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The combination of the tactical and Green Tide's stratagems, because they are very slightly different timing, is absolutely disgusting.
Monokirone 171 donated $2 through Super Chat. Can we talk about the Votan lists at Tacoma?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can start with Votan if we want to, because we did have undefeated Votan. Actually, I should have for best armies, I probably should have jumped into the not top cut, because we had X, O, and 1s that didn't make top cut because they drew. They knocked each other out. It's just very awkward. Yeah, we can start by talking about that. But yeah, just to finish the thought, I do think that it feels likely to me that, well, first of all, I think the timing on Go Get 'em is fucked. That needs an errata. The Go Get 'em stratagem, I can pull up the stratagem for Green Tide, is when you are targeted, it's not after the attack is resolved, and it doesn't resolve after the attack is resolved, which is fucked. So your opponent declares you as a target, and you just engage them, and they're like, all right, well, I'll go fuck myself, I guess. And then the combination between that and onto the next from Tactical Brigade, I think was clearly unintended. So for those who don't know the wombo here, Tactical Brigade gives you this stratagem where at the end of your opponent's movement phase, so you can operate this with perfect knowledge. Your opponent can't like fuck with it by triggering it early in the phase and then reacting to its movement. If you have an unengaged boys unit that was engaged, so either it's through some contrivance, it was engaged and killed itself, or you're most likely your opponent fell back from them. You can more normal move up to 6, so you can kind of make yourself entirely immune to shooting by saying, "Hello, I would like to make a normal move of up to 6 inches." If I have let's say I'm a move 8 unit, I've been engaged by an orc boy squad and I fall back. The boy squad just moves 6 inches directly towards me. If I shoot them at all from that point, then they use go get them and they re-engage me. So I basically have no capacity to engage these guys with any with any shooting. Almost at all, right? Not literally any shooting, but most shooting is going to be fizzled because these are all infantry squads, so we can't fire into melee with them. And if they have 2 CP floating, they almost always have the opportunity to re-engage the thing that was just engaging them. So yeah, I would not, speaking personally, expect that combination of effects to work as it is now. And you could easily get rid of it by just making green tide 3 detachment points, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. You lose the advance into actions. That's like the biggest one. That stratagem is the biggest benefit you get from Tactical Brigade. But you lose the advance into actions, so you like very marginally decrease their scenario scoring power, and then you stop that like absolutely degenerate combination from happening. I think we saw like the initial portion of the metagame, the initial sort of review, I guess, was that Tau was really good, and I think since that combination was unlocked, where the fuck did all the Tau players go? I think that list single-handedly killed every Tau player in existence. Like, they're gone. They just can't win that matchup. They have to play so many, like, Star Scythe Battlesuit teams, for example, in order to have a chance to kill enough orcs. And in most cases, as soon as they get close enough, that combo just re-engages their army, and they can only attack with 1 unit, essentially. And it really, really stifles any ability for like primarily ranged armies to compete with this at all. So you basically like you remove half the metagame from being able to fight these guys, and then the other half just has to fight against orcs, which, you know, in a melee mirror is sometimes a little bit tough.
At Ander Robinson 2077 donated $5 through Super Chat. Nasdrag needs to be 275 points. Also Dylan is a poser.
275 would be pretty wild. I don't know who Dylan is, but man, that might be true. I don't know. Anyway, Mono Kironi wanted to talk about Votan. So let's talk about Votan. Junior Fleahy, who's a Votan sort of extraordinaire over here, did go XO1 with Needguard Covenant plus, or Hearthguard Covenant, plus Needguard Oathband. So that's all the buffs for your Hearthguard, Einherjar Hearthguard, and call units, your character attached units. Plus, we could get yield points when you do murders on people, which is good. Rocky Uthar the Destined in a Hearthguard unit. Actually, kind of rare. We do that. We do have a teleport crest on these guys. I don't think Uthar can use his his cost reduction ability. Apparently Uthar does not exist in the Warhammer app. Oh my god. Chat. Do you have to put the little aiguë? What is it called? The little hat? It's not an umlaut, right? Umlaut's two dots. The little accent on Uthar. Otherwise the app doesn't recognize it. Bro. 39K had that figured out a million years ago. That's actually insane. But he has to be within 12 inches, I believe, of a friendly unit to use his command point cost reduction. So if you start him off the table, he can't use it. You actually just lose efficiency. So I wouldn't be surprised if we were just like putting him on the table anyway. The Hearthguard are rocking a teleport crest, but I don't think it changes that much because they're getting an invuln save from the Rampart crest, regardless, I believe. They're getting a 5+ invuln save either way. Pretty weird. We have a call with Ancestral Crest in another 10 model Einhir Hearthguard unit. So that's only 5 with Uthar. A Memnir Strategist with Oathbound Speculator. So that is the +1 or reroll 1s to wound, and we can pay a yield point to get +1 to wound inside an Ironkin Steeljack unit with Heavy Vulcanite. So these guys shoot a billion, trillion, million times, and then also gain that +1 to wound, and you can Ancestral Sentence them as well for sustain 2. You should net 12 attacks back with sustained hits too, so they, in a lot of cases, effectively like just hit with all their shots, right? So it's like 36 shots, and then you're wounding most targets on 4s, even if you're not rolling for devastating. So this combination is pretty spooky. Not to mention the fact that obviously Ironkin Steeljacks get the improved Overwatch, and if I remember correctly, we are able to use Oathbound Speculator to buff our Overwatch even further. So we get 5+ Overwatch. If you're in Fortified Takeover, you get 4+ Overwatch, and then you get the Overwatch for free thanks to the Memnir Strategist. And then Oathbound Speculator, I believe, works every time you're selected to shoot. So you can get +1 to wound Overwatch as well. It's just each time you make an attack. If you're selected to shoot, you can give yourself +1 to wound. So if you are absolutely rife with yield points, you can burn yield points on your free Overwatch to fire at +1 to wound, hitting on 4s. So you're looking at somewhere around like 18 hits if the entire unit is shooting. Wounding on 4s, you're probably hitting your opponent 9 saves and a couple dev wounds. So that like wombo, that combination allows you to get more value out of the Oathbound Speculator than it would, or at least more activations out of Oathbound Speculator than it would if it was on something like a call inside an Einhir Hearthguard unit, which is another very popular place to put it. It also makes the Ironkin Steeljacks kind of good in melee, which is a little bit funny, because you can still use all the Oathbound Speculator effects in melee. The melee profile of the unit is not actually that bad. It's like strength 6, AP 2 for 1 damage, and you can give them +1 to wound. So it's not like it's only 12 attacks, right? But if you need to punch your way out of a fight, you can do that. Which I think always surprises people. They look at this big heavy infantry squad and they expect that it's like a Gravis unit. It's like you engage a unit of Eradicators and they're punching you at strength 4, like 401 because they're a Space Marine. And then you engage these guys, which don't look like they have a melee weapon, and they pull out this strength 6 high AP thing and they stab you to death. Pretty neat. I don't know. It's kind of fun. We've got Buri Egdirson. We've got a Capricus Carrier. Big unit of Baroque here. Thunder Cannon with Graviton Blast Cannons to blow up vehicles. Second unit to strip cover. We have a Cathodian Berserk Squad. 2 Hecatan Land Fortresses, because they're cool. A Hurricane Jaeger unit plus a unit of melee Ironkin Steeljacks. I actually don't know if we can use the Sustain strat. Ancestral Sentence in melee. No, it's shooting phase only. So I don't know if we have any like particular. I guess we could get +1 AP or +2 AP in melee on those guys. But as a melee counterpunch, like the melee Ironkin Steeljacks do attack 18 times. So if they're charging onto an objective, they're hitting on 2s, attacking 18 times. They're probably good for killing 10 models or doing 10 wounds to most things, which for only 80 points on a 2+ armor save unit is not too bad in the late game. So I don't know. Seems pretty interesting. It's interesting that like there are a lot of different Votann builds, and the times that Votann do crest through undefeated, it definitely feels like they do have a little bit of build variety. Much better than last edition, where they were like sort of playing into Delve Assault Shift versus the Needguard or Mercenary Oathbands, or Hearthguard or Mercenary Oathbands. but it does feel a little bit like the combination of detachments does let them play around in the Sprinter a little bit. It does feel like Hearthguard Covenant maybe is like extremely pushed, but I wonder how much of that is Hearthguard Covenant being good versus the other one pointers being kind of bad in that army. So I don't know. Yeah, so let's talk about Emperor's Children real quick here. We did see Emperor's Children at 5-0. Carnival of Excess plus Frenzied Host is the Wombo combo over here. Running Triple Lord's Exultant, one with Warp Walker, one with Possessed Blade, one with Dark Blessings. Warp Walker, I think, is you auto advance 6. Actually, don't know what Dark Blessings is.
Edriong 6931 donated $10 through Super Chat. All hail the tentacle. From upon high the toxic queen has risen from the dead and his kingdom will have no end. Has come down and graced us with the frame keyword. Love the tentacle.
Now we get to have a long and heartfelt discussion about how frame keyword actually works when you're moving. If you have a base and the frame keyword, how does it work? Because the rules are nondescript. Which obviously creates massive implications for like grav vehicles. But of course, for the Toxicrene, basically defines exactly how the Toxicrene functions. I don't know necessarily if it can move through walls with its tentacles. In which case, the frame keyword is actually a massive downside for it because it won't be able to get through narrow gaps in between buildings. But I don't know if that's the case. If that is the case, then of course, other things like wave serpents and stuff can go through gaps because they can go through any gap that your base can go through. However, because the frame keyword always uses every part of its model to determine its relation to other game elements, obviously there is the potential that they roll that prevents you from interacting with terrain features, because normally you wouldn't be able to pass directly through terrain features with other things. Don't monsters turn into cats and slip through narrow gaps if they can end their movement without touching? No. That's the rule for everything. Everything can do that, but the rules imply but never outright say that if the frame keyword basically considers the entirety of the model as its base, not in so many words, for the purposes of measuring. So I don't know if you shrink down to your base size while moving if you have frame. It wouldn't make sense if you did, because every other measurement comes from every part of your model. But I could also see them do it that way to improve the playability of big models that have the frame keyword. So I don't know. I think it just requires an errata. Like many things in the game, requires fucking FAQ, which is very frustrating. I do like, as much as we can give Games Workshop credit for this edition transition being the smoothest probably of all time, we can still give them guff for just forgetting to define like very basic stuff. The fact that command point generation limits are still not in the core rules is embarrassing. It's frankly embarrassing. That is a day one, whoops, we did a thing, just slot it right into the command rule. Would just write one sentence out. You can only gain one command point per round beyond your core command points. They just never did that. And they left it up to the GW Open Tacoma people to talk about it. I don't know. Very stupid. Anyway, and that's another good example of it. Anyway, let's talk about Frenzied Host. So we are running a Keeper of Secrets. Holy shit. That's crazy. Do Keepers of Secrets do things? I actually have no idea. We do get the opportunity to get sustained hits inside this detachment, which is pretty cool. I don't know if there's necessarily any like explicit synergy. You do get +1 AP and Legion of Excess stuff within 6 inches. Your monster to be hit in melee, But I don't know if Carnival has, like, any... Oh, what the fuck? Oh. Carnival of Excess also is a thing in Codex Demons. That's stupid. Can we think of new terms for things, G-Dub? So I don't know necessarily if there are any, like, reasons specifically to play Keepers of Secrets. I guess, like, having a big thing is good, right? For 250, their profile for 250 is actually not too bad, especially in a universe where everyone's taking Terminators all the time, right? The Keepers of Secrets are like patent, like, just purpose built to just run in and blow up a Terminator unit. And because we've seen every one of their mom just slotting in Terminators into their armies, it does feel like the Keeper of Secrets is probably pretty good there. You could also, like, they're very fast and can deep strike, so you can just keep it in reserve and then just, like, come out of rapid ingress at any point where your opponent's, like, threatening you with a Scarab Occult unit or something. And the Keeper of Secrets just runs in and kills half of them immediately, and then passes the turn. We can heal them. We can when a Legion access a unit from your army destroys an enemy unit, you can charge with an Emperor's Children unit within 6 inches. Okay. We can get 6-inch piling consolidate moves. We can get advance and charge, as long as it charges something that Emperor's Children unit engages, which is not too hard if we're playing these guys, Frenzied Host. We have, like, so many little units running around that being able to flip a guy off into a side target and then engage them is not too bad. Uncanny Reactions gives the -1 to be hit, which also works in shooting phase. And then we get 6-inch deep strike. Your opponent's fight phase on a demonette only. Yeah, so I guess we're just bringing it as a heavy infantry answer, which I think makes a lot of sense. Get to be -2 to hit in cover. If you're behind terrain features, it's actually a little bit difficult for the Keeper of Secrets because it's very tall. Like, just as a, it's like basically a tall, skinny rod, which means its base, almost certainly its base has to be behind a terrain feature for it to be hidden. It's like not the easiest thing in the world. It definitely does feel like cover is much less of an issue in this edition than it was last edition. Which is good, to be honest. Last edition cover was oppressive. You were in cover or you couldn't see anything. Oh, okay. So we also have double Defilers, Heavy Reaper autocannon. So we have baseline sustained hits, and Carnival of Excess gives you critical 5s. So I think we're just basically stat checking people. We have a bunch of infantry that can steal their objectives, and then you have 3 T10 plus 18 wound models with invulnerable saves that you have to chew through, standing behind all those infantry. So I think that's probably part of it. That's fascinating. Keeper of Secrets at the top 4 of GW Open. We have a Keeper of Secrets. That's insane, dude. Absolutely crazy. The claws go wide, but they're very tall. So if you are touching a terrain area, it's unlikely the claws are going to be behind any wall, right? Because they're like 3 or 4 inches off the ground. So it's not like a model that has like a sticky outy tail or something like that, right? Or like wings that like hang near the ground, where you can flip one of them around the corner of a building to gain cover. Because there's like a single point, you have to be in a very specific position in relation to a ruin or something to be able to get that. Not that it's impossible, but it is just like less likely. We'll cover Adepta Sororitas real quick here. Scott Ketchum, who's a Sororitas extraordinaire, ended up going undefeated, tied with Junior, the Votan player, in the finals, or in the finals before the top cut. So they didn't make the top cut because they knocked each other out at an 85-85 draw. That's absolutely wild. That's just crazy. We are running Morven Vol, a Paragon Warsuit unit. 3 Paragon Warsuits running multi-meltas. This one, not heavy bolters. It's interesting to see, like, that there's just straight up I feel like a 50-50 shot you're running bolters versus meltas on Paragon Warships these days. And in some cases, you even run both. I've seen some lists where it's like, I have one multi-melta and 2 heavy bolters, because when I jump in, one multi-melta is in melta range, and then the 2 heavy bolters are never in melta range, or sometimes not even in range at all, because they're farther back. The unit's physically very large. So I'll just take heavy bolters of them anyway, which I think is very interesting. Anytime you see bifurcated weapon selection like that, you always know, like, oh, this person needs business. They know what's up. We've got a Ministorum Priest in a big unit of Arco-Flagellants, so just a billion attacks, buffed by the Ministorum Priest. A Celestial Incendiate Squad with another Ministorum Priest, so we have a good, aggressive scout unit. A Palatine in a Celestial Sacrosanct Squad with Through Suffering Strength. This Palatine, by the way, if you haven't seen the full wombo combo of this this unit, it's absolutely disgusting. I'm gonna read off a bunch of numbers, and then I'm gonna hope that they're correct. So the Palatine itself gets +1 attack, strength, and damage. I think it goes to strength 5, 5 attacks and strength 6, 3 damage. If the bearer has lost wounds, you get +2 attack, strength, and damage. So almost certainly what you'll do is you will take damage and then Divine Intervene to regenerate them at 1, so that they are below half. Then you get +2 attack, strength, and damage, +1 to hit and wound. Then you are unlock. I don't know if I go to the if I find a detachment. This is so frustrating. If you find a detachment, no Hallowed Martyrs, via the search, it doesn't unlock your ability to look at any other components of that detachment, which is very stupid. You can use Righteous Vengeance to get reroll hits and wounds. So the Palatine, I'm gonna fact check my numbers, can net a grand total of 6 attacks and strength 6 AP2 4 damage. If you burn the miracle dice to its own ability, you also gain a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So it becomes effectively 5 damage, but one of those wounds is unsavable. With full rerolls and +1 to hit and wound. So in most cases, you're wounding at worst on 5s with full rerolls, but a lot of times on 4s, inflicting somewhere around 4 or 5 mortal wounds, and any of those attacks go through hit you for 4. So she, by herself, loses her unit, dies, regenerates on 1, and then just kills a battle tank. And then being able, obviously, to apply lethal hits to a bunch of the halberds on a Celestian Sacrosanct Squad, also very good, but in order to deliver that Palatine into the fray. Can also overcharge your pistol to get mortal wounds. Right, but it doesn't work the same anymore, because when you overcharge your pistol, your unit suffers immortal wounds, and you have to assign that to the Sacrosanct unit. If you're still inside the Sacrosanct Squad, obviously. If the Sacrosancts are dead and she's by herself, she can overcharge to give herself a hit. The reason that that's relevant is that the GW Open Tacoma ruled that if your character is destroyed, then returned to the battlefield through a stratagem, they detach from their original parent unit. So the Palatine would need to independently track her starting strength once she has used Divine Intervention the first time. So, at that point, shooting the plasma pistol to try to get yourself a hazardous hit is relevant. However, the Sacrosancts themselves would be suffering the damage, because mortal wounds explicitly cannot be placed on characters until the bodyguard unit is dead. That's in the mortal wound application thing. Previously, you could, so it's a non-character model that's lost a wound, which is not the case because they are 1 wound models. Otherwise, you choose a non-character model to suffer one of the mortal wounds. Then otherwise you go to character models that have lost wounds and character models that haven't lost wounds. It's essentially the same as, like, the same requirements as allocation group sequencing. It's almost exactly the same rule. And then each mortal wound the unit suffers inflicts whatever allocation group is forced to move to the front, takes 1 damage. So because you fail the hazardous check with the plasma pistol, you go down the line and you say, I have non-character unwounded models, which means one of them must suffer the mortal wound. So you lose a Sacrosanct. So it's not quite as good as it was last edition. Last edition, because it was 3 damage, she would just fire her plasma pistol like indiscriminately and try to hit herself down to 1, but you can't do that anymore. We're bringing a Canoness with Saintly Example, a second Canoness, or 2 utility Canonesses to try to die and gain Miracle Dice, also score some points. We have the Triumph of Saint Catherine, an Arcoflagellant squad, a pair of Celestian Incendant squads. These guys are absolutely, they have shown themselves to be incredible. For 120 points, you get this unit with just a massive number of like high impact devastating attacks. It's pretty crazy in a lot of matches because there are like extremely powerful psychic armies in the game right now, right? Scintillating Legion, Thousand Suns, all that stuff. Librarian's Conclave, of course, is all psychic. They care about psychers quite a bit. Your anti-psycher 4+ on most of your attacks, anything but your blessed swords, and then devastating. So on a 4+, you're just automatically dealing mortal wounds. Even if you don't care about that, just a million attacks with devastating, not too bad. And you get the unit champion with this massive mace that you can plug 6s into to just automatically inflict 3 mortals at a time. So this unit can go in and like stab a Terminator to death and then use the Vigil and just basically automatically kill another one. So into a variety of targets, they're very good, and they're not very expensive. Plus, they have enough attacks that they're good into like light infantry and stuff too, so they can skirmish with the best of them also. We have a pair of Sanctifier units, so we're playing 3 total Sanctifier squads for turn 1, like early game. Torrent weapons. They also give you lots of really strong Overwatches as well, and then an Inquisitorial Agents unit and a Navigator. Very technical army. Because we have the double Sanctifiers and the triple Sanctifiers, excuse me, and the double Incendants. Most of the army is just light infantry on the board. I think there's 1 Rhino. So is there a Rhino at all? There's no Rhinos. Everything's on the board. So the only real like counterpunch, like big punchy units is the Palatine squad as well as the Paragon Warsuits. The rest of the army is just doing a bunch of skirmishing. And I guess to a lesser extent the Arcoflagellants if your save is not particularly high. Pretty cool army. That's always another, I think, good example of a player with a lot of technical skill is if their army is basically very like lightly equipped like that. You know, we're not relying on any castigators. We're not doing any of these like big long range gun platforms because we know if we play the fight phase correctly, we should be able to get additional value out of our little tiny units. All right. Let's talk about. Should we talk about some Space Marines, chat? I feel like y'all feel that we should talk about Space Wolves because it's wild that Space Wolves took top cut at Tacoma. That's pretty crazy. So, Forrest Fanton, who is a Space Wolves player extraordinaire, ended up playing the combination of Legends of Saga and Song and Saga of the Great Wolf. He's a pretty good wolf, all things considered. It looks to me, so this was an open question, and I guess like because we ended up being at the top table with this list. Again, Games Workshop needs to FAQ their shit, which is really embarrassing. So the rule is in the core rulebook that Epic Heroes cannot have enhancements. So nobody actually knows what that means. The question was, and then Tacoma said, an Epic Hero can join a unit with another model that has an enhancement. So if you had an enhanced lieutenant or something, your Epic Hero could go into it. What they never clarified is if you could join an upgraded unit. But I guess you can, because this guy went all the way to the top cut and nobody said anything about it. So I guess that's the case. The core rule feels like it would prevent that because an Epic Hero would gain an enhancement by joining an enhanced unit, but what the fuck do I know? So I don't know. I think that's great. Good news for explicitly Space Wolf players who have a bunch of units that can solely be joined by Epic Heroes with really good attachment or with really good upgrades that they otherwise could not have applied because Games Workshop is terrible. Absolutely just atrocious at writing rules. So these guys have Fierce Example, which is +1 toughness. So you get a T6 Terminator, Wolfguard Terminator squad, which is a situational modest one to be wounded. So they're very difficult to kill. With Logan Grimnar. We have a Captain Terminator armor with Grimnar's Mark. That's from Saga of the Great Wolf. And that's what allows him to, there we go, join into the Terminator unit. I don't know if it does anything else. I guess he can rapid ingress for -1. Interesting. So he can rapid ingress or heroically intervene for fewer and use the stratagem later, and has his own command point or cost reduction built in as well. So this guy's just a little command point fire hose, which is awesome. We have Arjak Rockfist in another unit of Wolfguard Terminators. Bjorners, Bjorn the Fell-Handed for additional command point generation. A Combi Weapon Lieutenant for some utility. Infiltrator Squad plus a Land Raider Redeemer. Land Raider Redeemer, I don't think he can carry any of these things. Right? He's just hanging out. He's just vibing. He can carry the Lieutenant and Combi Weapon, which is oftentimes something that happens because the Combi Weapon Lieutenant can jump in and out of the Land Raider Redeemer with reactive moves, right? So once you move within 8 of him, he can move 6. And he can just jump into the Redeemer, so he's impossible to kill, and then you shoot them with the Redeemer. But I think the Land Raider's just in there as a big bulwark inside the unit. We can, inside Saga of the Great Wolf, give it +1 to wound. That is this, I believe. +1 to wound and shooting. So the Redeemer doesn't really care that much about Oath of Moment because all its guns auto hit. But getting +1 to wound means it can fire into a lot of vehicles wound on 4s. So you're averaging handing them like 6 AP2 2 damage saves, which is good for, in most cases, like 8 to 10 damage plus whatever else it's doing. So irrespective of your other guns, this guy's probably cooking a medium-sized vehicle every turn. Plus you could then just like pump, like just, sort of siphon Overwatch through him every turn to just keep continuously kill units. As long as you have the campaign points to fuel Redeemers, they do absolutely ruinous things to your opponent's army. Which, I don't know, makes a lot of sense, I guess. It also gives you, it does give you an outlet for Hunter's Eye, because you can get +1 to hit on the other weapons. The Wolfguard Terminators themselves like have a couple assault cannons, but it's not that big of a deal that we get +1 to hit. But getting it on your multi-meltas and twin assault cannons and stuff is actually not too bad. But then I think what we largely will be doing is either we'll probably double up on reroll advance and charge on the turn that we're jumping the army into sort of full send, and then we just switch it to 2 sets of ferocious strike for lethal or sustained in melee. Because we have Logan Grimnar, you can duplicate one of the hunting pack bonuses once per game. Did the Tacoma FAQ say upgrades or enhancements? Yeah, so that's not the issue. The issue is that like the cool rule basically I guess not explicitly, which is the issue, but the core rule does imply that epic heroes cannot join an enhanced unit because they can't have enhancements, right? So if an upgrade is an enhancement and you give an enhancement to a character by joining an enhanced unit, then you shouldn't be able to join him into this unit without an explicit rule that says otherwise. Tacoma Open said, I believe, like simultaneously that you could join into a unit with another character that had an enhancement, and that upgrades were also enhancements, which of course they are. But never explicitly stated that like that was transitive to upgraded units being joined by epic heroes. It's a fucking mess, dude. These rules are bad. You just need to ground up rework how the muster armies phase works, so it works, I think, as they intended, because it definitely doesn't at the time of recording. So the question, like the awkward part was that like we weren't really sure if any of this worked together. It seems like it's clear it was supposed to, because otherwise those enhancements are bad. And it would sort of be unnecessary to print them at all. But unfortunately, they didn't really describe exactly how they're supposed to be working. Clearly though, it works this way because that's how they played it at the event, which means we have precedent now to say that that's how it works in the future, which is great. I love that. But I also would love if they had just clarified it in the core rulebook. Again, they still don't say that you can't generate more than 1 command point in the core rules. Embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Let's talk about Black Templars. We can talk about some Bastion Task Force. It's been a while since we've seen Black Templars at the table because the Black Templars community seems to be pretty sure that their faction sucks and is unplayable. But they did top, checks notes, 9. They top 10, I guess. If we want to use a clean number, they're number 9. In bracket 2, just below the championship bracket, and went 7-1. Tommy Aguilu with a Bastion Task Force, which is cool. So that's running a Marshal with Blades of Velour, plus a Crusader squad. Big, it's a 10? It's a 10, man. Another Marshal and a Castellan. Bombast Omnivox in another 10-man. Fucking 4 Assault Intercessor squads. Okay, I mean, fair enough, I guess. Obviously, this detachment does give you advance, shoot, and charge on all these guys, and advance and perform actions. So, having a million of these little units gives you a lot of little OC2, kind of high efficiency melee that you can just run into your opponent's expansion objective and constantly keep them off balance. And a lot of times when you're just playing Take and Hold, a lot of your primary missions require that you push across the table into your opponent's expansion to either take objectives or to hold multiple objectives, or to storm objectives. And so having a million of these Assault Intercessor squads to be able to do that is very strong. 75 points for an Assault Intercessor squad is what a steal. We have a standard Intercessor squad for OBSEC, 2 JPI squads just for higher base movement. They don't get any of the detachment bonuses, but beyond aspect scan if you can ping somebody with a gunshot. But they are pretty good just in general as deep strikers or models that move more than 6 inches. 2 land speeders, 2 repulsor executioners, the Black Templars variety, of course, plus a pair of scout squads for utility as well. Good on Black Templars, getting work done. It's been a hot minute. I think I'm also interested in discussing some Eldari. Reese Robbins played Eldari, and he played against Nick Nanavati in round, I want to say like round 7 or round 6, and the Art of War like Instagram feed, their shorts feed has been absolutely fucking brutal. And they just posted the screenshot of the pair between Reese Robbins. Reese Robbins, by the way, for those who don't know, if you're relatively new, is, I believe still is, or at least was, the event or the organizer of Frontline Gaming, like the CEO of the entire company. So all of the OG events, right? Las Vegas Open, BAO, Atlantic City, Lone Star Open, Cherokee, all of these huge events were sort of the brainchild of Reese. He also used to run ITC when we used the ITC mission pack for competitive play. So he was a big mover and shaker for competitive 40K for a really long time. And the Art of War channel posted the fight scene from Up where it's like 2 old guys fighting. When they posted Nick Nanavati versus Reese Robbins. Absolutely fucking brutal, dude. Neither of them, to be clear, particularly old people, but they are kind of like OGs in terms of Warhammer 40K. So yeah, pretty funny. More Eldari nerfs incoming. Yeah, got him. This is an interesting list. I'm excited to talk about this. This list probably got some wins because nobody knew what the fuck it did. This is Eldritch Raiders and Path of the Outcast. Path of the Outcast is obviously the Ranger detachment for Eldari, the 1-pointer that gives you access to like a bunch of expanded detection range, and then it gives you that one strat that makes like it's like rapid fire and ignore cover or something on every single gun on your Shroud Runner squad, which is kind of crazy. But then we're also playing Eldritch Raiders, which is reroll advances. And you're eligible to declare a charge on all Eldari units in your army. You get reroll advances on Unrathi Rangers and Shroud Runners. I actually did not realize. I don't think I grokked that this is advance and charge on every unit. I don't know necessarily what we're advancing and charging with in Eldar that doesn't already have it. and isn't like good at fighting innately. I guess it's like Shining Spears and the Avatar Arcane probably. But you do lose the rerolls that you get from Aspectos, which is a downside. We're running Prince Uriel with Adrenal Infusions. That is, you can use Fade Back Agile Maneuver without spending a battle focus token to do so, even if other units have done so in the same phase. It doesn't prevent other units from using Agile that Agile Maneuver. So that's the move D6 in response to shooting, I believe. The big unit of 10 Corsair Void Scarred. We have Karseth in a Corsair Void Reaver unit. He's actually, I think, become popular in Drukhari as well because he's Unwrathy keyworded, and they can ally in Outcasts because he's a anti-Deep Strike aura and pushes a lot of their attacks to Strength 6, which is a big breakpoint. We have Asterman with a Dire Avenger squad for a little bit of skirmishing, a little bit of anti-tank from Fuegan, and a Fire Dragon unit. A standard Autark with a Striking Scorpion squad. He just gives a... he's like reroll advances and you get a free strat, right? Reroll advanced rolls and agile maneuver rolls, and you get a free stratagem. I wonder what the free strats are in Elder Traders. Sap is so awkward. It doesn't remember my history. It has a back button, but the back button just brings you to the main page. Why do I even use it? Unwrathy, Void Scarred, Eldar Infantry can get a 5+ Feel No Pain. Interesting. Unwrathy, Rangers, Unwrathy. Yeah, so it's actually there's not really any synergy. Advance and Charge, I guess the Striking Scorpion's pretty good, though. And you get reroll advances. So he's kind of like, in a roundabout way, gets the full detachment ability, although he doesn't get the strats. We have Lycus with a Warp Spooder unit. And then the Avatar of Cain, obviously great for Advance and Charge. Storm Guardian squad for OBSEC. The Falcon, so we can do the Dire Avenger full reroll buff, but they can't go back into the Falcon anymore, right? So it's actually kind of cursed. Like you get one use out of it, and then you're just hanging out. I guess you can reload the Falcon with like Fire Dragons or something on the subsequent turn. So maybe it's fine. Is Karseth in a 10-man, so he can't go in the Falcon. I guess that's probably what's happening. Like you could dump out a unit from the Falcon, like the Striking Scorpions or something like that, and then you could refill it with the Dire Avengers. Then you could hop out and then shoot and then run back in and stuff. Yeah, then go back every other turn. Yeah, for sure. But they have to take a turn off, like not being in a transport, which is very weird. I guess in some cases, can you embark after a fade away? I actually don't know. Oh, God. It is fade back. I think you can, right? You just can't re-embark on the same turn, but if you get shot at, you could just go back in the transport. Neat. Plus a Shroud Runner squad, so we can shoot people and stuff. This list is wild. I fucking love this list. This detachment seems really fun. Honestly, all of the Corsair detachments seem really fun. I kind of wish... It feels a little bit like the units that they're applying their buffs to are way too expensive. We're like, hey guys, we have a bunch of Chaosfer and Wrathy units, which are 18 points per model Eldar profiles. And you're like, what? We just looked at Crusader squads for Black Templars. Not even a unit that's particularly good, which have like Blood Surge, Advance and Charge, Advance and Shoot, like 4 AP1 melee attacks with, plus 1 to wound probably. And then you're comparing that to like Corsair Void Scarred, which are like, hey guys, we get blasters and we cost more. You're like, oh boy. I don't know about this one, man. It feels like if you cut their points values by a little bit, I think these Raider detachments would be very cool and popular. But they're so expensive on a per model basis. It's crazy. Which is wild. Yeah, anyway. Cool to see Eldari doing okay. See if there's any other interesting ones. I think we talked about a lot of the pretty cool ones towards the top here. Are there any factions that people are interested in taking a peek at. If not, we'll hop over and we'll talk about the Edinburgh Super Major, which was another one of the Super Majors that we had this weekend. Had a very kind of a diverse top cut, which was good. Actually, I think the only duplicate was Space Marines, which is like not that surprising because Space Marines are the most popular faction generally, so it is what it is. We want to look at Grey Knights. Yeah, there's a Grey Knights at top 10. Scott Cairns playing Argent Assault and Banishers, the classique. Argent Assault is +1 to wound against higher toughness enemies with your paladins in melee, so they're strength 6 +1, so they wound most targets on 4s, unless you're like a land raider, then they wound you on 5s. However, you get Banishers, which gives you lethal or sustained in melee on a successful leadership check, which can offset that quite a bit. So you can have these guys like winning on 4s into a lot of vehicles with sustain, or even winning on 5s with lethals into big heavy stuff anyway. So I don't know, generally pretty good. We got to do a little puzzle here, Chad. So Grandmaster Voldus is attached to a 10 model paladin squad with side cannons. Interesting. He demarcated leader and bodyguard with L's and B's. So L1 goes to B1, L2 goes to B2. We have a Brotherhood Librarian with 66th seal. I don't know what that is. My level. 66th seal. That is inside the Banisher's detachment, and gives you +1 AP in shooting. So they're pretty good at shooting. I guess that also affects your Vortex of Doom on the Brotherhood Librarian, so that makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of Psych Cannons here too, so these guys all go to AP2. They're psychic, so they ignore cover, or ignore hit modifiers anyway. Then we have a third Paladin squad with Incinerators. It's just a 5er. That's Bodyguard 3, so that gets a Brotherhood Chaplain with Psychic Celerity. So the benefit here is that this guy gets, he gives reroll 1s to, or reroll to charge, and then Psychic Celerity gives him +1 to charge, so the unit can just jump out of reserve and make an 8-inch charge with a reroll. So in most cases, you're going to be setting up to either play around Mists of Deimos and shoot people, or you're going to set up to Rapid Ingress, move, shoot, and charge people. The Chaplain gives you basically a no command points required out for just setting up normally and charging people the normal way. Which, it's a little bit better than a coin flip to get in. On an 8 with a reroll, I think it's like a 60-something percenter. So it's not guaranteed he gets in, but it's not terrible that he hits the charge. And because he's only in a 5 model unit, he's not the most expensive thing ever. It is still 300 points. If you do throw him away, it's not great. But if you are sort of playing in the universe where the rest of your army is doing like some sort of chicanery to get themselves into melee, having that guy in the back pocket is very nice. We then have a Grandmaster Nemesis right now with Sigil of the Hunt. Reroll hits of 1 with shooting attacks. Very good. He's got a Sublimator, so he's a little bit good for anti-tank work. So 25 Paladins, 2 Strike Squads, and 1 Nemesis Dread Knight. It is 6 units. Very nice, chat. I do love, by the way, that we are officially back to Grey Knight Terminators being good, right? It has always been, classically for the faction, a faction of Terminators supported by Power Armored Marines. That's why they have multiple Terminator profiles, right? And the Power Armored Marines are generally meant to be support. However, it's been the case for the longest time, basically 2 full editions, that Terminators were stone cold unplayable. And we finally found a way. It's to make them purge the foe so that they can be massively low unit count and not really care that much, and then be very difficult to kill and hit very hard, so that you always win your purge mirrors. And then you're good. You don't have to care that much about controlling objectives. We just need the strike squads to be able to skirmish over the objectives, and then maybe return to Paladin squad to fight them for a little bit there. And basically, the paladins ideally will out attrition most enemies that don't have just a massive amount of anti-heavy infantry shooting. I don't know. It's pretty straightforward. Seems pretty good. All right, chance. I think with that we can move off of the Tacoma Open. And let's talk about the Edinburgh Supermajor, because there's a couple interesting things to talk about there. We can start by talking about some Nurgle. So Edinburgh Supermajor was 230 players, so a little bit smaller. Only ran 7 rounds, excuse me. Went to 2 undefeated. I talked about both these armies at the in my best armies of 40K this morning. The Dark Angels army is very interesting. It's playing Inner Circle Task Force. So if you want me to hear my breakdown of that one, that's in my video from this morning. The Tyranids army was a more classic sort of invasion fleet build, but still pretty cool. However, we also see a bunch of interesting stuff like Chaos Demons. Chaos Demons lost an undefeated, a perfect score by 16 points in only the final round. R.I.P. This is the difference, by the way, these days between going undefeated at a GT. And going X-1 and taking 3rd place is a grand total of 14 points over the course of the entire event. Fucking wild. Absolutely crazy. So Blair Wilson over here running Chaos Demons, running the combination of Plague Legion and Warp Tide. So we get advance in charge at all the Plague Bearers so we can get them up into position. And then you can, because they project a 9-inch aura of Shadow Chaos and they can cause Battle Shock checks inside that Shadow Chaos, they just like basically start Battle Shocking everything in the front line and making it almost impossible for you to be able to sort of retain control of the midboard. They aren't the hardest thing in the world to kill. They do have a lot of wounds for their points value, but they don't hit super hard. However, they will just sort of go up the center of the battlefield for long enough that they're heavy. The big greater demons can get some work done. So we have a Poxbringer with Maggot Maws, Epidemius, so he can generate command points off of killing people, which you'll do with basically everyone in the army, because typically everyone in the army is Nurgle keyworded. We have a Sloppy Bilepiper with Canker Blight. So Canker Blight's going to remove models in response to failed Battle Shock checks. The Poxbringer is going to inflict mortal wounds in addition to that. So between those two, you can essentially like have a model be destroyed and inflict D3 mortal wounds onto a unit that fails a single Battle Shock check within range of both of them. So if they're taking the center of the battlefield, anything you push up into the middle bit there is just going to get basically absolutely vaporized by those two. We have a Droning Shroud, Great Unclean One, so he gets the Lone Operative aura. We have a Great Unclean One with Font of Spores plus Rodigus. A 6-model unit of Nurglings, a Beast of Nurgle, another 2 Beasts of Nurgle because we do have a 2 CP strat to regenerate one of them, and then a little bit of Khorne demons in there. Skull Cannons because they can inflict Battle Shock checks on people. So as we are compounding all of these overlapping Battle Shock synergies, where you're taking mortal wounds from Shadow of Chaos, or you're losing models, or you're taking automatic mortal wounds on failed Battle Shock checks based on your proximity to the different auras, the Skull Cannons can also be inflicting those just by shooting at people. And they're relatively cheap and kind of hard to kill for their points value because they have a 4+ invuln. And then we have Flesh Hounds for up-down porpoises. We've talked about mostly, I think, a very similar list to that in the past. A lot of like regular Ultramarines in this sort of loadout here, which is a little bit less exciting. See if we can find any particularly cool stuff to talk about. So Tau did Tau did do well, and Tau did well with a fucking wild list. Well, I guess it's a little bit strange. Okay, so Tau ended up. We played Take and Hold. We played Experimental Prototype Cadre and Crude Hunting Pack. However, I don't think Experimental Prototype Cadre does anything here. I think it's just a 1-pointer. We didn't have a single Experimental Prototype carries about Experimental Prototype. cares about like battlesuit character units. We don't have a single battlesuit character unit, and I don't believe any of their stratagems do anything. Yeah. In addition to that, we didn't even use the detachment ability. So he just has it. I don't know, just in there, I guess. Otherwise, it's all crit hunting pack all the time. Doing it to get purge on Veterans of the Long War? Yeah, but in this case, he didn't even use it because he took Take and Hold, which is the crit hunting pack force disposition. So this is at literally no purpose inside the list, which of course is like, doesn't say you can't take it, right? And because crit hunting pack can't overlay with auxiliary cadre because they're both auxiliary keyworded, then it's fine, whatever. Who really cares? What's up, Kitty Cat? Do you have some thoughts about the Crude Hunting Pack detachment for Tau Empire? So the big thing here is Crude Hunting Pack gives you a 5+ invulnerable or 6+ invulnerable save, 5+ invulnerable save against ranged attacks. You're permanently in cover because basically all of the Crute themselves have stealth, and then we can do things like lone op our Crute. We can shoot and charge when you fall back. We can respawn Crute back to the battle after you destroy an entire Crute infantry unit. And we can also give them +1 AP after you shoot at somebody with your melee attacks. So, in this case, we are rocking a Crute Warshaper with root card weapons to give him, I think it gives him Devastating, right? That's his deal. And then he's anti-infantry, so he can do a little bit of damage if he wants to. There you go. Precision and Devastating Wounds. Precision pretty good here because like you can most likely just like dome a character if they have a little 4-wounder in there with his cool dart bow. We have a Flesh Shaper and inside a 20 model unit of Crute Carnivores. Oh, they're double attached. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that they got support attachments. That's fascinating. So the Warshaper gives you a free stratagem or a discounted stratagem. He also can unbattle shock people, and then the Flesh Shaper gives you, I believe, a 5+ Feel No Pain. Sustained hits 1, and you have a 6+ Feel No Pain. If you ever destroy a unit, you get a 5+ Feel No Pain. Fascinating. I guess it's only like 250 points for 22 guys with a Feel No Pain and an Invuln save all stacked up on top of each other. It's pretty interesting. We have another Flesh Shaper and a Trail Shaper with Nomadic Hunter. Oh, fuck off, app. So that gives us +3 move characteristic. So that unit's moving 10, I believe. Plus another Flesh Shaper. We have Dark Strider. Basically, just hold your home objective with the 12-inch lone up, or the 12-inch, the no deep strike effect. Plus a Crude Hawk Flock with a Lone Spear, so that he also has a 12-inch no deep strike effect. And he's a lone operative, so Dark Strider can be in a gone to ground position. So most likely you can't deep strike within 12, and you can't shoot him from outside 12. And then the Lone Spear just does that all the time. So you basically protect your entire backline with these two characters for 150 points. And it's not to mention that the Lone Spear is like not bad by himself. Dark Strider's kind of mid, but the Lone Spear himself actually will buff the rest of the team pretty well and then run back into his screening position. We then have 4 units of 10 Crute Carnivores, 2 units of Crute Farstalkers, 2 units of Crute Hounds, 18 Crute Rampagers, 9 Crute Ox Riders, 1 unit of Espid Stingwings for just a million things in the middle. Look at them go. I believe, I'm going to double check myself here. I believe that the Crute Rampagers are on 50mm bases, which means they don't suffer quite as much from the new melee rules. Yeah, because 50mm is very marginally below 2 inches. If you stack 2 50mm bases together, the second rank will be in melee. So unlike other cavalry, they don't have the same issue where if you have those really long and wide bases, it's very difficult to stack multiple rows of models attacking unless you have an expanded engagement range effect. The Crit Rampagers basically just use 10th edition's melee rules. They haven't really changed at all, which is helpful for them, of course. However, some other mounted units that we've discussed, like big mounted units, getting them to melee is really awkward. Rampagers, not so much. They just don't really care. They're just hanging out. Yeah. So that's cool. Like Mont Ka or Retaliation Cadre Tau is always pretty sweet. There's a little bit of... There's a couple of Imperial Knights lists that did well, but they basically all ended up talking about, or using Gatewarden Lance with Dominus Foebreakers, which is, it is what it is. We did have more Space Wolves, actually. So all you Space Wolf fans are gonna get we get more content, which is sweet. Andrew White over here went 5-1. Ended up playing Legend of Saga and Song plus Saga of the Great Wolf, which feels like a very natural sort of combination. I hazard to guess that this event did not rule that you can upgrade a unit with an epic hero in it. So that would likely be why we wouldn't add the upgrade to these guys. I think that was probably explicit for GW Open Tacoma, but I don't 100% know that for sure, of course. We got Logi Grimney with a Wolfguard Terminator unit. Ragnar Blackbane with a 10 model unit of Blood Claws. These guys hit pretty hard, plus they're relatively quick, which is good. They advance and charge naturally, so they don't need the advance and charge strat from Saga of the Great Wolf, which is good because the advance and charge strat, I believe, is used in the movement phase, which is awkward because it reduces your ability to like dice fix your advance. So, if we pull open that detachment, it is Unrelenting Hunters, which gives you fallback and charge. If you are Space Wolves, you can advance and fall back. It's used in the movement phase. So, for example, if we don't have the reroll advance doctrine active, and you want to make a relatively sort of knife's head charge, right? Let's say we need an 11 on 3d6, which is like about a 50-50. Then you can shore that up by giving yourself a reroll on your advance roll. So if you roll a 1 on the advance, you get into a 4. Suddenly you only need a 7 on the charge roll. That helps your variance quite a bit. However, because the stratagem is used in the movement phase, you can't do that at all if you want to use the strat, because as soon as you target them either with the strat or with the reroll, it locks out the other one from being able to be used. So having Ragnar Blackmane, a model who is naturally able to advance and charge, or the Blood Claws, I guess, are naturally able to advance and charge. Ragnar buffs the Blood Claws or gives advance and charge, one or the other. You do get this like a slightly higher reliability sort of offensive unit. We have a Wolfguard Battle Leader in a Head Taker squad with double fisting power weapons. Arjack Rock Fist in a big unit of Wolfguard Terminators. So it's 20 Wolfguard Terminators in total. Plus Bjorn the Hellfoul-Handed, an Intercessor squad, a Land Raider Redeemer, which can deliver actually quite a bit, either the Head Takers or the Ragnar Blackbane. We don't have an impulse or anything, right? So I guess you're just like picking and choosing probably. There's an additional unit of 5 Wolfguard Terminators as an extra offensive unit, plus backline support from an Intercessor squad as well. Right, giving wound rerolls is great with the bulk of black blood claw attacks. Yeah, the other thing too is that because he now permanently leads the unit, I believe Ragnar will retain his wound rerolls even if all the blood claws die, which is very common if you get hit by a bunch of like relatively beefy AP weapons all at once. Which is great for him because he's just a massively high volume strength 6 weapon. So this is really awkward into high toughness enemies unless he's wound rerolling, in which case it becomes amazing, right? Because he should get around 8 hits unless you're swinging into the oath target. And then you're about a 50-50 to convert a 5+ with a reroll. So he should hand you like 4 or 5 saves on, depending on what, like if he might be lethal as well because of the detachment ability. he should hand you like 4 or 5 saves at AP3/2 damage, most of which go through. So he, even without any blood claws remaining in the unit, he himself is still hitting for a bunch of damage. I might I think that works. It's a little weird because he's still considered to be leading a unit. I assume he's still considered to be leading a Blood Claws unit, although he has no Blood Claws models remaining in the unit. So I don't know if that's the case. This refers to, I imagine this refers to the datasheet name rather than a keyword, because keywords are explicit to whatever your, it's both. I actually, all right, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I guess I don't know if that works. He will get it as long as one Blood Claw is remaining for sure. So it doesn't, like, he can himself kind of carry the unit. It's great if you get the whole unit in, of course. Like, they're very good into, like, mid-toughness enemies. But Ragnar Blackmane's, like, the star of the show. I actually don't know what the unit counts as. If it's a Blood Claw unit with no Blood Claws remaining, right? You have all the keywords of its components units. If you have a rule that applies to units with any of the keywords, models and attached units do not gain keywords of other models. Attached units after their bodyguard unit is destroyed. You have rules that say when a bodyguard unit attached, in an attached unit is destroyed, leader support units that were attached become separate units. Oh, that's a bug fixing from 10th edition rules. We should probably just rewrite those rules, G-Dub. If we're doing digital rules, we could just redefine those instead of keeping this awkward clauses in. I'm gonna level chat. I actually don't know if Ragnar retains his rerolls if the Blood Claws are dead. He's still leading a unit. The question is if the unit is still a Blood Claw unit, because the Blood Claw unit is both the name of the unit and the keyword of the models in the unit. So fuck it, I don't know. That's just not covered. Weird. Is there something that's like a datasheet name? Is that a rule somewhere? Oh, a datasheet name acts as a keyword of the unit. Okay. So I do believe that I have been incorrect. I've led you astray, chat. I do believe that Ragnar does lose his rerolls if all of his Blood Claws are dead. Because while he's still leading a unit, the name of the unit he was leading counts as a keyword, which means he's leading a unit, but he's no longer a Blood Claws unit, which means he wouldn't get the rerolls. That's what it seems like to me. That might be one for my FAQ. I'm gonna note that down for myself right now. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna note that down in case I get that question later, because I think that might be important. Fascinating. Cool. Anyway, good discussion about Space Rolls, chat. I'm glad that we could work that one out. All right. Are there any additional factions that we want to take a peek at in the Edinburgh Super Major? X1, we have a couple of interesting factions. It's a lot of Ultramarines ended up doing well. Tau Empire tended to do X1, but I have a sneaking suspicion that stuff like Orcs ended up knocking him out because that matchup seems so bad. I don't even know what to talk about. Oh, actually, we have one more sort of Super Major adjacent event that went down this weekend that I actually didn't get to discuss, because when I was building out when I was taking down lists for the Best Armies in 40K last night, because it was a long event running on the West Coast, it actually didn't end until I had taken all my data down. So the Palm Springs Classic was another one. It's 130 players, friendly gaming event, I believe. Or Dice Hammer, excuse me. My bad. It's Dice Hammer. Ended up with a draw in the semifinals, which allowed for 3 undefeated players. I didn't get to discuss these players' lists again because they had ended after I basically recorded the entire video, and I was in the middle of editing. These events don't really end until like midnight for me, essentially, if they go for the full 6 rounds, which does get a little awkward. However, we can talk about why Chaos Space Marines are fucking killing everyone. This detachment's crazy. Victor Krampus running a combination of Murder Talon Raiders and Veterans of the Log War. So Veterans of the Log War obviously gives you an Oath of Mode effect, so you can get rerolls against a target's your focus of hatred. Murder Talon is the Raptor detachment. That's a 1-pointer. So it gives you reroll hits of 1 targeting below or battle shocked or below half strength units. -1 to be hit if they target you. You can't take it alongside the other Raptor detachment. I guess, are we playing Raptors? No, we're not. Oh yeah, we're playing Warp Talons. Excuse me. So it cares about fly infantry. You get things like Lance. We have Pact of Cursed Pinions, which gives +1 attack to a jump pack Chaos Lord of the Power Fist. It's 20 points for +1 attack. I guess you get Demon Keyword, which is cool, I guess. Interesting. But then you're able to use the Lance stratagem for free, I suppose, which is pretty good. Or fall back in charge or whatever. We're also then playing Huron, Masters of the Maelstrom, plus a chosen unit. If I were to hazard a guess, chat, I think this combination of units is going up in points. If I was a betting man, the next time we see a balance pass the game, I would not be surprised to see these 3 units explicitly, maybe even in conjunction, increasing in points value, because this is in every single high-performing Chaos Space Marine list. And Chaos Space Marines are one of the highest-performing factions of the game right now, at least for the last 2 weeks or so. And the fact that this combination of units is in every single list speaks volumes. We have the Warp Talons. We have Lord Discordant Hellstalker, Vashtor the Archifane, 2 Cultist Mobs, Chaos Bikers for utility, Red Corsair Raiders for some early game disruption, and then double Defilers. Defilers with hit rerolls in general are very, very strong. So being able to target down a unit with the Focus of Hatred and then get rerolls into critical hits. Because the Heavy Reaper Autocannon is baseline sustain, you can get sustain plus lethal on all of its weapons, and then just reroll, shooting at a cover. Who gives a shit? We're just gonna fish for a bunch of critical hits, and then you're just plowing tons of AP 1 or 2 damage attacks into people. These guys shoot 8 times, right? Then the Screech Hero Cannon shoot another 12, so you're shooting a total of 20, which is just pretty brutal once you hit enough 6s on there. Whew. Will Defilers also go up? It's hard to say. I almost think I would expect to see the ranged loadout go up. So, like right now, you can play either the Baleflamer and melee versus all the guns, and in every case, the guns are like strictly superior. They changed it so that las cannons came with a points increase. I would not be surprised to see if the auto cannons also got a points increase, because the las cannons were played largely last edition because you could get sustained hits from dark packs, and then you could just like fish for a bunch of sustains and then use the AP3 to punch through cover. However, you don't need the high AP anymore, so the autocannons are in many cases either a side grade or strictly better anyway. So the fact that the autocannons don't cost as much as the las cannons is a little bit weird, because the core rules changed to make you want to take autocannons anyway. So it's also like a meta thing too for the autocannon specifically. Like there's a lot of high volume 3 wound infantry units in the game right now, and case in point, the fucking chosen unit. And so having that profile is good. I would expect to see the weapon profiles, the weapon options go up in cost, maybe more so than the chassis itself. Thousand Sons, Emperor's Children going up? I would not. Thousand Sons, maybe. I'd be surprised if Emperor's Children went up again. Are they doing that well? Maybe they're just like a lower volume. I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, am I wrong? They already increased the autocannon's cost? Oh, I did not realize that. When did they do that? I thought that it was just the last cannons that went up. Harpies will be nerfed. There's like a cadre of people who super duper want harpies to be more playable. I think the aircraft rules nowadays are very interesting. I would like to see aircraft like sort of given a fair shake. Are you sure, right, chat? Yeah, the Reaper autocannon last cannons have gone up. So I think I would expect to see the war gear options go up even further. I think that the baseline Defiler chassis feels probably okay, like it's fine. At almost 350 points, close to 350 if you are the second one you take. So if you're taking multiple, so it's like almost knight profile, but the problem is that like shoots and melee's harder than a knight. If it's basically the same cost and just melee's well, that's probably fine. The weird part is that like it shoots so hard. So I could see also like the alternative to excruciators is you take melta guns, which is clearly worse. I don't like what the fuck. I could see them upcharge the excruciator cannon and then further upcharge the ranged profiles, because I don't think what they want to do is invalidate the melee version, because the melee version is interesting to have, but you don't really want it in generally. So I think that all the guns go up is probably the way it goes. All right. So the other list that went undefeated here that wasn't top. So the top list was Renegade Raiders, which I think is basically just the same list that we talked about over the weekend that otherwise did well. There's a Renegade Raiders build that's like focusing on double Noise Marines and then like some amount of mounted and then some like one Defiler. Like between 1 and 2 Defilers, or you can take some infantry. That's pretty like straightforward and self-explanatory. I didn't get to talk about this list. And taking Veterans of the Long War is very interesting. I think that's cool as hell. Definitely makes those Defilers spooky without any need for additional support, which is cool. Electro Scourge looks great for Carnival. Yeah, the problem is that like you take Defilers in Emperor's Children explicitly because they're not just like another thing with a 2 or 3 damage like melee attack that attacks a bunch of times. So Defiler is not particularly unique if you're taking the melee one. You could get most of the damage from a Defiler out of like a Lord Exultant. Obviously the Lord Exultant doesn't hit as hard, but for the things you're attacking in a lot of cases, he hits hard enough that he's going to kill whatever he charges, and he costs half as much as a Defiler. So you're like, why am I paying for this guy? That's like hard to maneuver around the table. The difference is that like the Defiler fulfills a ranged platform role that you just literally don't have anywhere else in the entire faction for Emperor's Children. So you're kind of like almost shoehorned into taking Defilers regardless because you want the guns. Yeah, you shoot hard further the Noise Marines for sure.
Briong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Not sure if you saw, but the app now forces you to choose a dispo and will display an error message on your list and output if not chosen.
Yeah, they sent TOs a big like email blast about it when they made that change. Very good, obviously. It was like annoying that people wouldn't fucking choose their disposition. They wouldn't put it into BCP and BCP's drop down because people keep they keep insisting on using the BCP app, which is no longer supported. So it's like, what are we doing? People are like, why can't I see the drop down menu? Yeah, because the app isn't actively supported. You just have to go online, which is the same as the app, except it actually works. And then people report they have issues with the app. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. But at least now it will be in their list. So if they forget, it is what it is. I would like to enforce a culture of putting it at into the player details tab when you put your faction in, because I think that's easier. It's just good to have in general. It also is, I imagine, how Games Workshop will track force disposition. What's the word? How well they do, their stats. So yeah. Oh, anyway, chat. I think that might be it for me today. I'm gonna be live in just a little bit here, basically just a couple minutes over on the Twitchies. I'm still kind of recovering from this weekend. We ended up demoing all weekend for Breach Storm, and then I got back late last night, made best numbers of 40K, and then I had to get up this morning to take my business partner to the airplane, to the airport. So I am exhausted, but we've got one more stream today. We have 2 or maybe 3. I think another one got scheduled in between. Invitational games scheduled tomorrow. So tomorrow is just going to be all invitational games on the channel all day long. If you enjoyed last week's invitational games, which were fucking crazy, by the way, we had a couple of like basically 1-point games, which were insane. If you enjoyed those, we're going to have more of those, of course, this happening tomorrow. I should also, hopefully by EOD, have the recorded games that I have from the Invitational up on my second channel as well. So we will have a lot of Invitational coverage to talk about as well on top of that. So I'll see you over there. Please come hang out with me over on Twitch. We're just going to be low-key streaming a tournament game. I'm playing against Dark Angels. I think it's one of the Inner Circle-y lists that we saw this weekend, and we're going to see if a bunch of Gene Stealers can kill a bunch of Dark Angels Deathwing Knights. I think they can, but I don't know for sure. But we'll find out, I guess. 190401 is the rule for the Space Marines problem. Is that the keyword one? No, that's a different thing. So what you're referring to is an ability thing. That's not the problem. The problem isn't the source of the ability, because the source of the ability is the leader. So as long as you have a leader in the unit, you have it. The issue is that Ragnar's leadership ability is extremely specific. So if we look at Ragnar, it is, of course, and I don't want anyone to think I'm not saying that if you were attached at the beginning of the game and you lose your attached unit, you still gain your leadership ability. That is, of course, how it works. However, Ragnar's ability only works while the unit he is leading is a Blood Claws unit. As soon as, according to the datasheet name rule, I'll explain the whole thing here. According to the datasheet name rule 0201, your datasheet name is a keyword, meaning that once you have no remaining models with that datasheet name in play, your unit loses that keyword. Meaning if we go back to Ragnar Blackmane, which of course it forgets. God, this app is a fucking nightmare. If we go back to Ragnar Blackmane, he is no longer leading a Blood Claws unit if his last Blood Claw is destroyed, because no models in the unit have the Blood Claw keyword, unless he does, and I'm a stupid moron. No, he's fine. So he would lose, as soon as his attached unit is destroyed, he actually loses his ability. He doesn't lose the fact that he's leading a unit, he just loses the effect of the ability, because his ability is modal based on what keyword the unit he's leading has, and if the unit he's leading has no keyword, he's basically just doesn't get anything. Which is shitty. But I don't know. It seems to me, it could have, of course, change, or there could be a rule that I'm missing. It seems to me that that's how that works. So just to elucidate the sort of discussion that we were having earlier. That's a super weird one, because very, very few other abilities in the game, if any, I think, check the keyword of the unit you're attached to. Normally they just say your attached unit gets whatever. So it is what it is. They could reword it to if he started the game attached to Blood Claws. Yes, of course. They could say that. But realistically, like, here's the problem. I made a bunch of content before the edition transitioned, because what they started doing with new characters is, instead of saying while this model's leading a unit, they just said this model's unit gains X, right? So I don't know why they haven't reworded all your leadership abilities to do that. It's not that hard. Just replace while this model is in a unit with this unit's gauge. This model's unit gauge X. I don't know. Then I think he might Ragnar explicitly might still require some extra work from that, but otherwise you get rid of all of this extra weirdness with like whether you're leading a unit and what keywords a unit has and all this bullshit, because you just always have the effect. Very fucking silly. The new core rules overwrite the old rules, right? But it doesn't matter. There's nothing in the core rules here that interact with that at all. Well, I mean, there is, which is the rule that I just referenced that counts this as a keyword. So, yes, the new core rules overwrite the old core rules, and the new core rules say you're no longer a blood clause unit if you have no blood clause left. To my reading, anyway. Of course, Games Workshop does like to come in with FAQs that make no sense in context. So who knows if that will remain the same? It could, of course, change on a dime at any time. Case in point, attaching it to upgraded units with an epic hero. But that is, I believe, explicit, essentially. Did I check out the Chaos Demon list in 3rd? At Edinburgh? Yeah, the Warp, the Plague Legion list. Yeah, we talked about that. This list is pretty common these days, the Warp Tide Plague Legion combo. Because you get like a bunch of very fast Plague Bearers, right? Whether you're using the Plague Legion buff or you're using Advancing Charge from Warp Tide. And then that allows you to like project your Shadow of Chaos all the way into your opponent's deployment zone really early in the game. Look at him go! Crow has a similar issue? Does he? Add one. No, while you're leading a unit. Yeah. I like that it's a psychic ability, by the way. I don't know why that's funny to me. Yeah, no, he's leading unit. All your purifying flame weapons get +1. He doesn't care what unit he's leading, but he only has one attachment option anyway, right? So it doesn't matter. If it said while Castle and Crow is leading a purifier unit, then it would be an issue, but he just says while he's leading a unit. So it's fine. Anyway, chat. I think that's it for me. I think it's time to hop off. It is funny. It's psychic. He's like psychically influencing his models to attack better. Guys, I will inform you on how to break a third attack or a second attack with your purifying flame weapon. Cool, thanks, Crow. You're the best, buddy. Yeah, so come hang out with me over on Twitch in, I don't know, give me 20 minutes or so, probably. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, everybody. Keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, all that stuff. I'll see you for invitational coverage tomorrow. And then back on Warhamster Wednesday on Wednesday. And we can probably go through the aftermath of Astra Militar literally winning anything, which is very funny. So, cheers, everyone.